Welcome to day 68 of reading 30 minutes every single day for the rest of my life. I got the Fellowship of the Ring. We're at page... Oh, that's a good question. Shoot. Oh, no, I got it. Page... I'll start page 301. That sounds right. Actually, I'm going to start 298, top of 298. Yep. That's what I'll do. So, yeah. Let me get 30 minutes started on the clock. .30 minutes starting now. Let's go. Okay. Here we go. The company set out again, with good speed at first, but soon their way became steep and difficult. The twisting and climbing road had in many places almost disappeared, and it was blocked with many fallen stones. The night grew deadly under dark great clouds. A bitter wind swirled among the rocks. By midnight they had climbed to the knees of the great mountains. The narrow path now wound under a sheer wall of cliffs to the left, above which the grim flanks of Cardaraz towered up invisible in the gloom. On the right was a gulf of darkness, where the land fell suddenly into a deep ravine. Laboriously they climbed a sharp slope and halted for a moment. At the top, Frodo felt a soft touch on his face. He put out his arm and saw the dim white flakes of snow settling on his sleeve. They went on. But before long, the snow was falling fast, filling all the air, and swirling into Frodo's eyes. The dark bent shapes of Gandalf and Aragorn only a pace or two ahead could hardly be seen. "I don't like this at all," panted Sam just behind. "Knows all right of a fine morning, but I like it to be in bed while it's falling. I wish this lot would go off to Hobbiton. Folk might welcome it there, except on the high moors of the North Farthing a heavy fall was rare in the Shire, and was regarded as a pleasant event and a chance for fun. No living hobbit, save Bilbo, could remember the fell winter of 1311, when white wolves invaded the Shire over the frozen Brandywine. Gandalf halted. Snow was thick on his hood and shoulders. It was already ankle-deep about his boots. "This is what I feared," he said. "What do you say now, Aragorn?" "That I feared it too," Aragorn answered, "but less than other things I knew the risk of snow, though it seldom falls heavily so far south, save high up in the mountains. But we are not high yet. We are still far down, where the paths are usually open all the winter." "I wonder if this is a contrivance of the enemy," said Boromir. "They say in the land that he can govern the storms of the mountains and shadow that stands upon the borders of Mordor. He has strange powers and many allies." "His arm has grown long indeed," said Gimli. "If he can draw snow down from the north to trouble us here 300 leagues away, his arm has grown long," said Gandalf. While they were halted, the wind died down, and the snow slackened until it almost ceased. They tramped on again, but they had not gone more than a furlong when the storm returned with fresh fury. The wind whistled, and the snow became a blinding blizzard. Soon even Boromir found it hard to keep going. The hobbits bent nearly double, toiled along behind the taller folk, but it was plain that they could not go much further if the snow continued. Frodo's feet fell like lead. Pippin was dragging behind. Even Gimli, as stout as any dwarf could be, was grumbling as he trudged. The company halted suddenly, as if they had come to an agreement without any words being spoken. They heard eerie noises in the darkness around them. It may have been only a trick of the wind in the cracks and gullies of the rocky wall, but the sound were those of shrill cries and wild howls of laughter. Stones began to fall from the mountainside, whistling over their heads or crashing on the path beside them. Damn. Every now and again they heard a dull rumble as a great boulder rolled down from hidden heights above. "We cannot go further tonight," said Boromir. "Let those call it the wind who will. There are fell voices on the air, and these stones are aimed at us." "I do call it the wind," said Aragorn, "but that does not make what you say untrue. There are many evil and unfriendly things in the world that have little love for those to go on two legs, and yet some are not in league with Sauron, but have purpose of their own. Some have been in this world longer than he. Caradores was called the Cruel and had an ill name, said Gimli, long years ago, when rumour of Sauron had not been heard in these lands. It matters little who in the enemy if we cannot beat off his attack, said Gandalf. But what can we do? Cried Pippin miserably. He was leaning on Merry and Frodo when he was shivering. Either stop where we are or go back, said Gandalf. It is no good going on, either a little higher if I remember rightly. This path leaves the cliff and runs into a wide shallow through at the bottom of a long hard slope. We should have no shelter from the snow or stones or anything else. Tuesday. I'm just checking something real quick, guys, on my calendar. Okay. But what can we do? Cried Pippin miserably. He was leaning on Merry and Frodo when he was shivering. Either stop where we are or go back, said Gandalf. It is no good going on. Only a little higher if I remembered rightly. This path leaves the cliff and runs into a wide shallow true at the bottom of a long hard slope. We should have no shelter there from now, or stones or anything else. And it is no good going back while the storm holds, said Aragorn. We have passed no place on the way up that offered more shelter than this cliff wall we are under now. Shelter, muttered Sam. If this is shelter, then one wall and no roof make a house. The company now gathered together as close to the cliff as they could. It faced southwards, and near the bottom it leaned out a little, so that they hoped it would give them some protection from the northerly wind and from the falling stones. Or anything else. And it is no good going back while the storms hold, said Aragorn. We have passed no place on the way up that offered more shelter than the cliff we are all under now. Shelter, muttered Sam. If this is shelter, then one wall and no roof make a house. The company now gathered together as they close to the cliff as they could. It faced southward, and near the bottom it leaned out a little, so they would hope it would give them some protection from the northerly wind and from the falling stones. But eddying blasts swirled round them from every side, and the snow flowed down in ever denser clouds. They huddled together with their backs to the wall. Bill the pony stood dejectedly in front of the hobbits, and screamed them a little, but before long the drifting snow was above his hocks, and it went on mounting. If they had no longer companions, the hobbits would have soon been entirely buried. A great sleeplessness came over Frodo. He felt himself sinking fast into a warm and hazy dream. He thought a fire was heating his toes, and out of the shadows of the other side of the earth he heard Bilbo's voice speaking. I don't think much of your diary, he said. Snowstorms on January the 12th. There was no need to come back to report that. But I wanted rest and sleep, Bilbo, Frodo answered with an effort when he felt himself shaken, and he came back painfully to wakefulness. Boromir had lifted him off the ground out of a nest of snow. This will be the death of the halflings, Gandalf said. Boromir. It is useless to sit here until the snow goes over our heads. We must do something to save ourselves. Give them this, said Gandalf, searching his pack and drawing out a leather flask. Just a mouthful each, for all of us. It is very precious. It is a Miravir, the cordial of Imladris. Elrond gave it to me at our parting. Pass it around. As soon as Frodo had swallowed a little bit of the warm and fragrant liquor, he felt a new strength of heart, and the heavy drowsiness left his limbs. The others also revived and found fresh hope and vigor. But the snow did not relent. It whirled about them thicker than ever, and the wind blew louder. What do you say to fire? Asked Boromir suddenly. The choice seems now near between fire and death, Gandalf. Doubtless we should be hidden from all unfriendly eyes when the snow has covered us, but that will not help us. You may make a fire if you can, answered Gandalf. If there are any watchers that can endure the storm, then they can see us, fire or no. But though they had brought wood and kindlings by the advice of Boromir, it passed the skill of elf or even dwarf to strike a flame that would hold amid the swirling wind or catch in the wet fuel. At last, reluctantly, Gandalf himself took a hand. Picking up a faggot, he held it aloft for a moment, and then, with a word of command, Nor en Trot Amman, he thrust the end of his staff into the midst of it. At once a great spout of green and blue flames sprang out, and the wood flared and sputtered. "If there are any to see, then I at least am revealed to them," he said. "I have written Gandalf is here, in all signs that all can read from Rivendell to the mouths of Anduin." But the company cared no longer for watchers or unfriendly eyes. Their hearts were rejoiced to see the light of the fire. The wood burned merrily, and though all around it the snow hissed, the pools of slush crept under their feet. They warmed their hands gladly at the blaze. They were stooping in a circle round the little dancing and blowing flames. A red light was on their tired and anxious faces. Behind them the night was like a black wall. But the wood was burning fast, and the snow still fell. The fire burned low, and the last faggot was thrown on. "The night is getting old," said Aragorn. "The dawn is not far off." "If any dawn can pierce these clouds," said Gimli. Boromir stepped out of the circle and stared into the blackness. "The snow is growing less," he said, "and the wind is quieter." Frodo gazed wearily at the flakes, still falling out of the dark to be revealed white for a moment in the light and dying fire. But for a long time he could see no line of their slackening. Then suddenly, as sleep was beginning to creep over him again, he was aware that the wind had indeed fallen, and the flakes were becoming larger and fewer. Very slowly a dim light began to grow. At last the snow stopped altogether. As the light grew stronger, it showed a silent, shrouded world. Below the refuge were white humps and domes and shapeless deeps beneath which the path they had trodden was altogether lost. But the heights above were hidden in great clouds, still heavy with the threat of snow. Gimli looked up and shook his head. "Caradhras has not forgiven us," he said. "He has more snow yet to fling at us. If we go on, the sooner we go back and the down the better." To this all agreed, but the retreat was now difficult. It might well prove impossible. Only a few paces from the ashes of the fire, the snow lay many feet deep, higher than the heads of the hobbits. In places it had been scooped and piled by the wind into great drifts against the cliff. "If Gandalf would go before us with a bright flame, he might melt the path for you," said Legolas. The storm had troubled him little, and he alone of the company remained still light of heart. "If elves could fly over mountains, they might fetch the sun to save us," answered Gandalf. But I must have something to work on. I cannot burn snow." "Well said, Boromir. When heads are at loss, bodies must serve, as we say in my country. The strongest of us must seek a way. See, though all is now snow-clad, our path as we came up turned about that shoulder of a rock down yonder. It was there that the snow first began to burden us. If we could reach that point, maybe it would prove easier beyond. It is no more than a furlong off, I guess." "Then let us force a path thither, you and I," said Aragorn. Aragorn was the tallest of the company, but Boromir, little less in height, was broader and heavier in build. He led the way, and Aragorn followed him. Slowly they moved off, and were soon toiling heavily. In the places the snow was breast high, and often Boromir seemed to be swimming on borrowing with his great arms rather than walking. Legolas watched them for a while with a smile upon his lips, and then he turned to the others. "The strongest must seek a way, say you? But I say that a plowman plow, but choose an otter for swimming, and for running light over grass and leaf, or over snow an elf." With that he sprang forth nimbly, and then Frodo noticed, as if for the first time, though he had long known it, that the elf had no boots, but wore only light shoes, as he always did, and his feet made little imprint on the snow. "Farewell," said to Gandalf. "I go to find the sun." Then, swift as a runner over firm said, he shot away and quickly overtaking the toiling men. With a wave of his hand he passed them, and sped into the distance, and vanished round the rocky turn. The others waited huddled together, watching until Boromir and Aragorn dwindled into black specks into the whiteness. At length they too passed from sight. The time dragged on. The clouds lowered, and now a few flakes of snow came curling down again. An hour maybe went by, though it seemed far longer, and then at last they saw Legolas coming back. At the same time Boromir and Aragorn reappeared round the bend far behind him and came laboring up the slope. Well, cried Legolas as he ran up, I have not brought the sun. She is walking in the blue fields of the south, and a little wrath of snow in the red-horn hillocks troubles her not at all. But I have brought back a gleam of hope for those who are doomed to go on feet. There is the greatest wind-drift of all just beyond the turn, and there our strong men were almost buried. They despaired until I returned and told them that the drift was little wider than a wall. And the other side, the snow suddenly grows less, while further down it is more than a white coverlet to cool a hobbit's toes. Ah, it is as I said, growled Gimli. It was no ordinary storm. It was the ill of will of Carteros. He does not love elves and dwarfs, and the drift was laid to cut off our escape. But happily your Carteros has forgotten that you have men with you, said Boromir, who came up at that moment, and doughty men too, if I may say it. Though lesser men with spades might have served you better, still we have thrust a lane through the drift, and all for that all here may be grateful, who cannot run as light as elves. But how are we to get down there, even if you have to cut through the drift, said Pippin, voicing the thought of all the hobbits. I have hope, said Boromir. I am weary, but I still have some strength left, and Aragorn too. But we will bear the little folk. The others no doubt will make shift to tread the path behind us. Come, Master Peregrine. I will, and drawing out a leather flask. Just a mouthful each, for all of us. It is very precious. It is a Meravir, the cordial of Imladris. Elrond gave it to me at our parting. Pass it around. As soon as Frodo had swallowed a little bit of the warm and fragrant liquor, he felt a new strength of heart, and the heavy drowsiness left his limbs. The others also revived and found fresh hope and vigor. But the snow did not relent. It whirled about them thicker than ever, and the wind blew louder. What do you say to fire? Asked Boromir suddenly. The choice seems now near between fire and death, Gandalf. Doubtless we should be hidden from all unfriendly eyes when the snow has covered us, but that will not help us. You may make a fire if you can, answered Gandalf. If there are any watchers that can endure the storm, then they can see us, fire or no. But though they had brought wood and kindlings by the advice of Boromir, it passed the skill of elf or even dwarf to strike a flame that would hold amid the swirling wind or catch in the wet fuel. At last, reluctantly, Gandalf himself took a hand. Picking up a faggot, he held it aloft for a moment, and then, with a word of command, Nor en Throth Amon, he thrust the end of his staff into the midst of it. At once a great spout of green and blue flames sprang out, and the wood flared and sputtered. If there are any to see, then I at least am revealed to them, he said. I have written Gandalf is here, in all signs that all can read from Rivendell to the mouths of Anduin. But the company cared no longer for watchers or unfriendly eyes. Their hearts were rejoiced to see the light of the fire. The wood burned merrily, and though all around it the snow hissed, the pools of slush crept under their feet. They warmed their hands gladly at the blaze. They were stooping in a circle round the little dancing and blowing flames. A red light was on their tired and anxious faces. Behind them the night was like a black wall. But the wood was burning fast, and the snow still fell. The fire burned low, and the last faggot was thrown on. The night is getting old, said Aragorn. The dawn is not far off. If any dawn can pierce these clouds, said Gimli. Boromir stepped out of the circle and stared into the blackness. The snow is growing less, he said, and the wind is quieter. Frodo gazed wearily at the flakes, still falling out of the dark to be revealed white for a moment in the light and dying fire. But for a long time he could see no line of their slackening. Then suddenly, as sleep was beginning to creep over him again, he was aware that the wind had indeed fallen, and the flakes were becoming larger and fewer. Very slowly a dim light began to grow. At last the snow stopped altogether. As the light grew stronger, it showed a silent, shrouded world. Below the refuge were white humps and domes and shapeless deeps beneath which the path they had trodden was altogether lost. But the heights above were hidden in great clouds, still heavy with the threat of snow. Gimli looked up and shook his head. Begin with you. He lifted up the hobbit. Cling to my back. I shall need my arms, he said, and strode forward. Aragorn, with Merry, came behind. Pippin marveled at his strength, seeing the passage that he had already forced with no other tool than his great limbs. Even now burdened as he was widening the track for those who followed, thrusting the snow aside as he went. They came at length to the great drift. It was flung across the mountain path like a sheer and sudden wall, and its crest, sharp as if shaped with knives, reared up more than twice the height of Boromir. But through the middle of a passage had been beaten, rising and falling like a bridge. On the far side, Merry and Pippin were set down, and there they waited with Legolas for the rest of the company to arrive. After a while, Boromir returned carrying Sam. Behind in the narrow but now well-trodden track came Gandalf, leading Bill with Gimli perched among the baggage. Last came Aragorn carrying Frodo. They passed through the lane, but hardly had Frodo touched the ground when, with a deep rumble, there rolled a fall of stones and slithering snow. The spray it half blinded the company as they crouched against the cliff, and when the air cleared again, they saw that the path was blocked behind them. Enough, enough, cried Gimli. We are departing as quickly as we may, and indeed, with that last stroke, the malice of the mountain seemed to be expended, as if Cardros was satisfied that the invaders had been beaten off and would not dare to return. The thread of snow lifted, the clouds began to break, and the light grew broader. As Legolas has reported, they found that the snow became steadily more shallow as they went down, so that even the hobbits could trudge along. Soon they all stood once more on the flat shelf of the head of the steep slope where they had felt the first flakes of snow the night before. The morning was now far advanced. From the high place they looked back westward from the lower lands. Far away in the tumble of country that lay at the foot of the mountains was the dell from which they had started to climb the pass. Frodo's legs ached. He was chilled to the bone and hungry, and his head was dizzy as he thought of the long and painful march downhill. Black specks swam before his eyes. He rubbed them, but the black specks remained. In the distance below him, but still high above the lower foothills, dark dots were circling in the air. The birds again, said Aragorn, pointing down. That cannot be helped now, said Gandalf. Whether they are good or evil, or even have nothing to do with us at all, we must go down all at once. Not even in the knees of Cardros will we wait for another nightfall. A cold wind flowed down behind them as they turned to their backs to the Red-Horn Gate and stumbled wearily down the slope. Cardros has defeated them. Chapter 4. A Journey in the Dark. It was evening, and the grey light was again waning fast. When they halted for the night, they were very wary. The mountains were veiled in deepening dusk, and the wind was cold. Gandalf spared them one more mouthful each of the Mere of Rivendell. When they had eaten some food, he called a council. We cannot, of course, go on again tonight, he said. The attack of the Red-Horn Gate has tired us out, and we must rest here for a while. And then where are we to go? Asked Frodo. We still have our journey and our errand before us, answered Gandalf. We have no choice but to go on or to return to Rivendell. Pippin's face brightened visibly at the more mention of return to Rivendell. Merry and Sam looked up hopefully, but Aragorn and Boromir made no sign. Frodo looked troubled. I wish I was back there, he said, but how can I return without shame unless there is indeed no other way, and we are already defeated? You are right, Frodo, said Gandalf. To go back is to admit defeat, and face worse defeat to come. If we go back now, then the ring must remain there. We shall not be able to set out again. Then sooner or later Rivendell will be besieged, and after a brief or bitter time it will be destroyed. The ring-wraiths are deadly enemies, but they are only shadows yet of the power and terror they would possess if the ruling ring was on their master's hand again. Then we must go on if there is a way, said Frodo with a sigh. Sam sank back into a gloom. There is a way that we may attempt, said Gandalf. I thought from the beginning, when I first considered this journey, that we should try it, but it is not a pleasant way, and I have not spoken of it to the company before. Aragorn was against it until the pass over the mountains had at least been tried. If it was a worse road than the Red-Horn Gate, then it must be evil indeed, said Merry, but you had better tell us about it, and let us know the worst at once. The road that I speak of leads to the mines of Moria, said Gandalf. Only Gimli lifted up his head. A smoldering fire was in his eyes. All the others a dread fell at the mention of that name. Even the hobbits, it was a legend of vague fear. The road may lead to Moria, but how can we hope that it will lead through Moria? Said Aragorn darkly. It is a name of ill omen, said Boromir, nor do I see the need to go there. If we cannot cross the mountains, let us journey southwards until we come to the Gate of Rohan, where men are friendly to my people, taking the road that I follow on my way hither. Or we might pass by Cross, the Isen, and Langstrand and Lebanon, or so come to the Gondor from the regions nigh to the sea. Things have changed since you came north, Boromir, answered Gandalf. Did you not hear what I told you of Saruman? With him I may have business of my own ere all is over. But the ring must not come near Isengard. If that can by any means be prevented, the gap of Rohan is closed to us while we go with Bearer. As for the longer road, we cannot afford the time. We might spend a year in such a journey, and we should pass through many lands that are empty and harborless. Yet they would not be safe. The watchful eyes of Sormen and the enemy are on them. When you came north, Boromir, you were in the enemy's eyes only one stray wanderer from the south and a matter of small concern to him. His mind was busy with the pursuit of the ring, but you return now as a member of the ring's company, and you are in peril as long as you remain with us. The danger will increase with every league that we go south under the naked sky. Since our open attempt on the mountain pass was plight has become more desperate, I fear. I see now little hope. If we do not soon vanish from sight for a while and cover our trail, therefore I advise that we should go neither over the mountains nor round them, but under them. That is a road at any rate that the enemy will least expect us to take. We do not know what he expects, said Boromir. May he watch all roads, likely and unlikely. In that case, to enter Moria would be to walk into a trap, hardly better than knocking at the gates of the Dark Tower itself. The name of Moria is black. You speak of what you do not know when you like Moria to the stronghold of Sauron, answered Gandalf. I alone of you have ever been to the dungeons of the Dark World, and only in his older and lesser dwelling in Dol Guldur. Those who pass the gates of Barad-dûr do not return, but I would not lead you into Moria if there were no hope of coming out again. If there are orcs there, it may prove ill for us, that is true, but most of the orcs of the Misty Mountains were scattered or destroyed in the Battle of the Five Armies. The eagles report that orcs are gathering again from afar, but there is hope that Moria is still free. There is even a chance that dwarves are there, and that in some deep hall of his fathers, Balin son of Fundin may be found. However, it may prove one must tread the path that need chooses. I will tread the path with you, Gandalf, said Gimli. I will go and look on the halls of Duron, whatever may wait there, if you can find the doors that are shut. Good, Gimli, said Gandalf. You encourage me. We will seek the hidden doors together, and we will come back through. In the ruins of the dwarfs, a dwarf's head will be less easy to bewilder than elves or men or hobbits. Yet it will not be the first time that I have been to Moria. I sought there for Long Theron, son of Theor, as he was lost. I passed through and came out again alive. I too once passed the Dimrol late, in Aragorn quietly, but though I came out again, the memory is very evil. I do not wish to enter Moria a second time. And I do not wish to enter it even once, said Pippin. Nor me, muttered Sam. Of course not, said Gandalf. Who would? But the question is, who will follow me if I lead you there? I will, said Gimli eagerly. I will, said Aragorn heavily. You followed my lead almost to disaster in the snow, and have said no word of blame. I will follow your lead now. If this last warning does not move you, it is not of the ring, nor any of others that I am thinking now, but of you, Gandalf. And I say to you, if you pass the doors of Moria, beware. I will not go, said Boromir, not unless the vote of the whole company is against me. We do Legolas, and the little folk say. The ring-bearer's voice surely should be heard. I do not want to go to Moria, said Legolas. The hobbit said nothing. Sam looked at Frodo, and as Frodo spoke, I do not wish to go, he said, but neither do I wish to refuse the advice of Gandalf. I beg that there should be no vote until we have slept on it. Gandalf will get votes easier in the light of the morning than in this cold gloom. How the wind howls. Frodo said, how the wind howls. He cried, it is howling with wolf voices. The wargs have come west of the mountains. Need we wait until morning then, said Gandalf. It is as I said, the hunt is up. Even if we live to see the dawn, who now will wisp to journey south by night with the wild wolves on his trail? How far is Moria? Asked Boromir. I wish I had taken Elrond's advice, muttered Pippin to Sam. I am no good after all. There is not enough of the breed of Bandibras, the bull-roarer, and these howls freeze my blood. I don't ever remember feeling so wretched. My heart's right down on my toes, Mr. Pippin, said Sam. But we weren't eaten yet, and there were some stout folk here with us. Whatever may be in store for old Gandalf, I'll wager it isn't a wolf's belly. Alright, that was day 58 of reading every single day for the rest of my life for 30 minutes. I am at the middle of page 311. Middle of page 311. See y'all day 69. Let's go.